How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Down to Earth with Christian Harloff. This is my Monday through Friday UAP News channel. Thanks for everybody who's been joining us. We are growing every day, and we're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. We're getting pretty close, so thanks. Hit that button, subscribe to the channel, and be a part of it. Have your voices heard. Ask questions. That's what we try to do over here. So, a lot of questions have been asked about Roswell. A lot of questions. And so, Mario Woods is a former staff sergeant in the U.S. Air Force, and he was asked a question about certain things with the craft itself, and he gave a very interesting answer to this about Roswell in general. And when you have so many, this is the thing that and I'm going to play the clip in a second, but when you have so many people who worked in the military and that were part of the Air Force that are continuously talking about this, it does continue to get that head scratch as far as like why would people keep coming out and talking about this if there wasn't something to it? And I get people asking questions, and I get people saying, well, wait a minute, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, and I the skeptic side of it, I get it. But listen to this clip. Let's watch this clip, and then I'll talk about it on the other side.
I just heard something recently that in the Roswell crash took 20 something years to break through the internal part of this chamber where there were two beings in it. And of course, after 20 something years, you know what that must have been like. It had to be mush by that time, whatever they are.
Yeah.
But being that they were able to do that, they invented a new type of a cutter, a plasma type cutter that was able to penetrate that metal. For 20, 30, 40 years that they couldn't get through it. So they just had this little pod sit off to the side, as what they do with all these projects. They work on them as long as they can till it reaches the technology level we are today. They can't go any further. They put it back. They wait for new and smarter people to come up with higher IQs and better training and background and imaginations. They bring it all back out and say, what can you do with this?
Yeah.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
All right, and that's a clip from the Really podcast with Tom and Dave, I believe is the name of the show. Yeah, so there's a lot to take in there, man. There's a lot to take in there. I mean, the first is that not necessarily the confirmation of, but this is if you believe in, and I think there's something to the reverse engineering programs, and that this is the continuation of that. And this is a guy who heard that it took 20 years to break into the hull itself. And when they did, this is one of the things of actually finding the bodies and what they found inside of it and the plasma things that they have. It's like, it's so science fiction-y at times that I understand if somebody hears this, you're like, well, wait a minute, come on. But like I said, there's just so many different people in so many facets of the government that are saying stuff like this. And then if you watched our report yesterday of what we said with the amount of reports that are coming with people inside of Congress that are hearing this type of stuff and the belief. And as Tim Burchett said, that he believes that the consensus is that they believe that this is otherworldly things. This is where I get to there's something more to this phase. And I do go into, I have an interview that's going to air on Tuesday on the UAP Tuesday show that I do. You can find the link on the playlist on the channel here, the homepage. And I interviewed Danny Sheehan, and I approach it in a way that I was like, well, there's a lot of people who are saying that this is going to happen, yet we're still waiting, that we potentially could get hearings, but what's going to happen in the interim? Seems like there's a lot of promises that are made, but not a lot of things that are being delivered. We get into all that. So I have been, and if you're watching these videos, you've seen a little bit more. I have been of the like, okay, this kind of adds to that, right? Because I believe this type of stuff. I believe that there are things that have you can believe all you want, and won't take it away from me that balloons are what Roswell was. From interviews and things that I've seen, I just don't understand the lies that would come with it from certain people that were there that were asked to lie. But that being said, it's just like the frustration comes with, well, this guy says up top, I heard recently. And it's not to say he didn't hear from credible people, but as I talked to with Danny Sheehan, it's like the people that are going to be interviewed as whether whistleblowers or witnesses that come to that next hearing, they can't be given reports like this of, well, I heard from somebody that this happened, because we're all going to go, okay, well, where's that person? Let's talk to that person. I want to bring in Pavel.
Hey, Christian. How's
What's
it
up?
going, man?
Good, man. So, okay. So did I cover everything pretty much inside of this clip? What did I miss? What say you on this?
Well, first, I think Mario Woods, he's one of the many witnesses that Robert Hastings interviewed for his book called UFOs and Nukes. He and his partner were sent to investigate an alarm at a nuclear missile silo and found a UFO. So he's a first-hand witness.
Okay.
A UFO was hovering above the missile site. So this guy's
actually
also
seen one. He's actually seen one.
Yeah, and he's also been interviewed by Arrow. So he's one of the first witnesses that was interviewed by Arrow. So what he said here, though, I think it's related to the book written by John Lakatsky, who is also a first-hand witness because he was like one of the people who ran these programs.
Right.
And I think that what he's saying is referring to what Lakatsky wrote in his recent book with George Knapp, where he talks about reaching the hall and all that stuff.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, so that goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that this guy is a first-hand witness. He just isn't necessarily a first-hand witness for this particular story that he told. Obviously, because this is Roswell, so he was probably either not. He wasn't even probably born yet at the time that this thing crashed. So, yeah, this makes sense. I didn't realize that that's exactly who he was, but it does. Let's get to the actual story itself, though. I mean, these are not. If you're paying attention to this thing enough, this is not unheard of. These types of stories. These are types of stories that if you sniff around this enough, you hear stuff like this, and this is the kind of stuff that when I first started really paying attention, I'm like, wait, if this kind of stuff is real, and we don't, and this is the type of thing that A, the public needs to know about, and B, how would they handle it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because also I think one thing is to tell like the classified information in a skiff to the person you're supposed to be telling it to, and another thing is to speak to the media and podcasters and all that stuff. Because if you remember well, when Grush gave Ross Coulthard the exclusive, he said a lot of stuff that he did not mention at the hearing, at least not like the most outrageous stuff. And I think it's good for people like him or like Woods to let the people know what is happening, even if they're not revealing the entire classified information, because we can't keep hanging on waiting on it to be confirmed. I think it's a little bit of a waste of time if we just wait for that and not inform ourselves with the people that are saying these things, and try to make our own read of on whether they're full of shit or not.
Yeah, I
Excuse
mean,
my
when you
language.
really break into it's right, when you also break into the story itself, it's like you start to realize also that 20 years just to crack into this thing in general. 20 years to crack into it. I mean, now granted, that's using materials from 47 and 1967. This 47 was when it crashed, yes?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
1 in
47.
47, 1 in 49, yeah.
Right, but 47 was the one, I assume that's the one you're
Roswell.
talking about. 47, right, 47 to 67. Took 20 years to do it. And and as he said, if you believe what the story that he was told, that they then started to develop like the plasma cutters or whatever else to figure out how to get into it. But just imagine, let's take that this story is 100% factual. The horror of what that must have been like, opening that up 20 years later of whatever was in there, and I did ask that question, by the way, and I don't want to give away the answer yet. I want people to watch it on Tuesday when I talk to Dan Sheen about the question that everybody asks, and that's like, well, because he had his own. I asked him about about interdimensional stuff and those types of things, and he had his own answer for it. And inside of that, I also said to him, you know, I'm going to ask you the question that everybody asks everybody that I'm sure is an annoying question. It's like, if these things have the kind of technology to fly in and out of different planets and all these things, why are they crashing? His answer was very interesting. Very interesting as far as the technology, but it is the question that you would ask, and it's the same thing of like, why did this thing particularly crash? How did it crash? Why it took 20 years to open up? Like, do you think that at the next hearings that these are the types of stories that we're going to hear in order for it to really be like different and groundbreaking, more so than the last? These are the types of stories from firsthand witnesses that we need.
I think that's the only thing that is going to convince people at this point, because a lot of us are very impatient, and it's understandable, like that's what needs to happen. We need at least one uh, of these witnesses under oath talking about this stuff in detail. I think we need it.
Well, Pavel, as always, my friend, thank you for joining me here today. We'll be back here on Monday for sure, and yeah, we'll see what happens over the weekend.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, so what say you guys when it comes to this? Like, with these particular stories, what do you feel about this story that was told? And when you answer that question, let's say that you're on the side of, I don't know, again, it's one of these stories of this person heard from this person. Why does someone, as Pavel said, who says firsthand witness who has seen one of these things, why do these military people go to this place to where they could potentially ruin their reputations, ruin their potential pensions, all these other things that they, why do they do that? What's the reasoning behind it? And don't just sell books. That doesn't make sense. You sell one book, and then what do you do after that book doesn't do well, or does okay? What say you? I want to hear about it. And do you believe this? Do you not believe it? Do you think that we'll hear things? Do you believe? I happen to agree with Pavel, and I think that these are the types of things that need to happen. These are the types of stories that need to happen at the next hearing. But do you think that? Do you think that as long as there are people who have stories enough that it's somewhat provable that you can do things like you did in the last one, you can kind of lead up to it? That it's, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, all right. Thanks for joining us today on the show, Down to Earth with Christian Harloff. As I said, please subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 20,000 pretty quick. For people who have asked if you want to help out this show and you want to support what we're doing here, and you can, well, I always put in the comments our sponsors. Go ahead and click one of those if you want and get yourself something. All right. Thanks again. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.